10:05 a.m. Kherson airspace. The sky looks calm enough to sell postcards, but 30,000 feet up, a Russian Su-34 is already dying, and its crew just doesn't know it yet. The explosion comes first, a violent white flash tearing through the left wing. Then the sound hits late, brutal, undeniable, as the jet disintegrates into spinning fire over friendly territory. If this bomber completes its glide bomb run, then another city block disappears from the map. If it doesn't, then today becomes a very expensive lesson in Western math. Stay focused, because what just happened should have been impossible. Minutes earlier, the Su-34 crews were relaxed, almost smug, cruising behind the borderline and lofting KAB-500 glide bombs like it was a firing range, convinced Ukrainian skies were still blind, still toothless. Russian command believed distance was armor, altitude was safety, and their flanker escorts and long-range missiles made them untouchable. But here is the twist they missed. The radar warning never screamed. The cockpit stayed quiet. No lock tone, no flashing threat ring, just blue sky right until physics arrived at Mach speed. Time to impact unknown. Margin for error, 0. And somewhere below the clouds, an F-16 pilot is already cold, steady, and counting down in silence. For years, this is how the Russians sold the sky. A layered nightmare of steel and radar where nothing Western dared to linger. Su-35s flankers patrolled like airborne bodyguards, their Airbus-E radars sweeping hundreds of miles, fingers already resting on R-37M missiles designed to kill targets before pilots even knew they were hunted. Behind them, an A-50U lumbered in wide circles, a flying command tower stitching the airspace together into one glowing red picture of control. From Moscow's perspective, this was dominance by spreadsheet. Expensive jets, expensive missiles, expensive doctrine. The kind of setup meant to make opponents blink first. Ukrainian aircraft, they believed, would never even lift off, not into this buzzsaw. And honestly, most analysts agreed. On paper, this was suicide. A fourth-generation jet entering an ecosystem built to erase it. The Russian crews joked on open comms, confident, almost bored, treating the mission like routine pest control rather than combat. Another glide bomb away, another city pressured, another day proving that Russia owned altitude, range, and initiative. But wait, here is the lethal assumption hiding inside that confidence. They believed air combat still began with radar noise and loud threats. They believed seeing first meant turning systems on, and they believed silence meant absence. That belief is about to cost them everything. Because what is cruising over Kherson right now is not just another jet. This Su-34 fullback is a flying investment portfolio. Roughly $50 million in airframe, engines, avionics, and training, carrying 2 KAB-500 glide bombs that turn altitude into distance and distance into terror. Each bomb costs more than most Ukrainian homes and is designed to be released safely, lazily, from beyond danger, drifting toward its target while the crew turns away to coffee and paperwork. Stack the escorts around it and the price tag balloons fast. A Su-35s at nearly $85 million playing guardian angel. R-37M missiles hanging under the wings at over $4 million per shot. And overhead, the A-50U, a flying radar cathedral worth north of $300 million, quietly burning fuel just to reassure everyone that nothing unexpected can happen today. On the Russian side of the ledger, this mission represents confidence monetized. Hundreds of millions of dollars in airborne arrogance, protected by doctrine that says the enemy will either be scared or dead long before contact. If you were the Russian commander watching this picture, you would feel safe. More than safe. You would feel justified. And that feeling is the most expensive liability in modern air combat. 10:01 a.m. Minutes before the Su-34 ever feels threatened, the trap is already moving. Quietly, invisibly, like a chess game where the board itself is lying. Far from the border, far from the bomb run, small shapes appear on Russian scopes, faint, inconsistent, just enough to trigger curiosity without triggering panic. Not fighters, not bombers. Something in between, something sloppy. Stay with me, because this is where modern air combat stops looking heroic and starts looking mathematical. The decoys don't rush. they drift. Mound end profiles bloom across the radar picture, signatures stretched and exaggerated, pretending to be an incoming strike package that doesn't care about stealth, doesn't care about being seen, and most importantly, doesn't care about dying. To a Russian operator, this looks like a mistake. A clumsy Western probe, easy targets, free kills. And that is exactly the point. Radars rotate faster, filters widen, track files multiply. The Russian system does what it was designed to do. It reaches outward, greedily, trying to understand everything at once. Fighters shift slightly to cover imagined axes of attack. Missiles come off safety, attention fragments. But here is the genius detail most people miss. While Russian sensors are busy chasing ghosts that scream loudly on every frequency, the real threat is doing the opposite. No emissions, no questions asked. No handshake with enemy radar, just borrowed vision. Data flows silently from a Western eye in the sky into a cockpit flying low and dark. An F-16 skimming beneath expectation, beneath doctrine, beneath the entire mental model Russia built for this war. The pilot never sees a radar spike because he never needs one. The target is already there, drawn in clean lines by someone else. If you were watching the Russian picture now, you'd think you were winning. Tracks disappearing, decoys destroyed, operators high-fiving over another successful intercept. But wait, this is not an air defense victory. This is inventory being drained, attention being stolen, and the clock moving closer to a moment no one on the Russian side is counting down. Time remaining, unknown, and shrinking fast. From the Russian side, this feels like a good day, a very good day. On the command screens, the false targets blink out one by one, erased by million-dollar missiles that streak upward like fireworks. And inside cramped control vans, officers slap backs and trade grins, convinced they just outplayed another amateur Western stunt. Radios crackle with short, confident confirmations. Targets destroyed, airspace secure. This is the moment arrogance cashes its check. Pilots in the Su-34 glance at their instruments, see nothing threatening, and settle back into routine. Glide bombs already programmed, release points calculated. They joke about how quiet Ukrainian skies have become lately, how the enemy seems to have finally learned its place. Even the Su-35 escorts loosen their posture, scanning wide arcs for enemies that insist on announcing themselves. But folks, here is the lethal error. They are celebrating noise, not awareness. Every decoy kill feels like proof of superiority, yet each one quietly empties a magazine, burns a budget line, and narrows options. $2 million interceptors vaporized against cardboard math. Attention locked forward, while the real danger approaches from a direction doctrine never taught them to fear. Silence. If you were one of the Russian commanders watching this unfold, would you question success? Or would you trust the system that's been praised, paraded, and funded for years? Would you slow down? Or would you press harder? Convinced the enemy is already breaking? Most choose confidence. And confidence, right now, is doing something remarkable. It is blinding them. Because while Russian crews are busy congratulating themselves for winning a fight that never existed, the actual engagement has already begun. No warning tones, no dramatic radar spikes, just a quiet alignment of geometry and physics that doesn't care about rank, reputation, or sunk cost. Margin for error, zero. And somewhere below the celebration, a weapon has already left the rail. 10:04 a.m. While Russian crews are still smiling at empty radar screens, the real fight finally steps onto the stage, and it does so without asking permission. Low over the terrain, masked by curvature, weather, clutter, and pure expectation bias, an F-16 AM Viper slides into the geometry like a blade finding the one weak seam in a steel plate. No radar search, no emissions, no challenge call, just data already solved. Stay focused, because this is where doctrine collapses in real time. Inside the cockpit, the pilot isn't hunting, he's confirming. The target track is already clean, already prioritized, already tagged by value and threat, painted in calm blue symbology fed silently from a Western eye miles away. The Su-34 isn't maneuvering, it doesn't need to. It believes altitude is armor and distance is immunity. That belief survives exactly until the pilot's thumb tightens. The missile leaves the rail without theater. No warning shout, no electronic scream, just a brief shudder as mass becomes velocity and the AIM-120D disappears forward, flying its first seconds blind, obedient only to math. This is the kind of attack Russian training manuals never prepared crews to fear, an engagement that doesn't announce itself, doesn't ask for a lock, and doesn't care about jamming because it never asked permission to see. But wait, there's one more layer to this humiliation. The Su-35 escorts don't react because they can't. By the time something feels wrong, the timeline is already broken. Radars scramble to repaint, filters tighten. Operators argue over returns that appear and vanish between sweeps. Was that clutter? Was that a glitch? Nobody wants to be the first voice on the net to say the word missile. Inside the Su-34 cockpit, there is no warning tone because there was never a lock. No flashing cue because no one ever turned on a flashlight. The first real indication of danger is a rapidly growing impossibility energy appearing where energy should not exist, closing distance too fast to name. Time to impact. Seconds. At this range, escape is theoretical. Chaff blooms too late. Maneuvering arrives after physics has already voted. The missile corrects, refines, commits. And in that final moment, the myth finally understands what silence really meant. Not absence. Ambush. The impact is not an explosion at first, it's a correction. The missile adjusts its angle by degrees, not meters, shaving error down to zero as kinetic energy stacks faster than the human brain can process. Then the proximity fuse decides the geometry is perfect, and physics finally takes the wheel. The warhead detonates off the Su-34's flank, not to blast, but to shape. A focused jet of superheated metal punches inward, slicing through aluminum skin, fuel lines, wiring looms, and structural ribs in a fraction of a second. This isn't Hollywood fireball logic. This is applied engineering. Pressure, heat, and velocity arriving together with surgical indifference. Fuel atomizes, oxygen obliges. The left engine inhales fire and instantly becomes a turbine-shaped bomb. The shockwave doesn't knock, it travels, racing through the airframe, snapping mounting points, collapsing systems, turning carefully separated components into a single violent argument. The wing doesn't rip off, it stops being a wing. Inside the cockpit, instruments die mid-sentence. Screens go black, hydraulics vanish, control laws collapse into nothing. The aircraft isn't hit, it is redefined. Time remaining, less than 3 seconds. The Su-34 begins to yaw, then tumble. Not because the pilot loses control, but because control no longer exists. What was once a $50 million bomber becomes a cloud of high-speed debris, each piece obeying its own version of gravity. Burning fragments arc downward, leaving brief chalk lines across the sky like signatures of failure. And this is the part most people miss. There is no dogfight here, no dramatic chase, no second pass. Just math completing a sentence it started miles ago. By the time Russian radar operators finally agree that something catastrophic has happened, the engagement is already over. One aircraft erased, one crew gone, one assumption dead. The sky over Kherson goes quiet again. But the silence doesn't mean safety anymore. It means the rules have changed. Now step back, because this is where the smoke thins and the accountants finally get the floor. Ukraine didn't win this moment with bravado. It won it with arithmetic. A handful of Maud-style decoys priced below a luxury SUV. Shared surveillance from a Western airborne radar paid for years ago. One AIM-120D missile that barely dents a modern defense budget. Add fuel, flight hours, planning, be generous, and this entire ambush still struggles to reach 7 figures. Now flip the ledger. One Su-34 erased. $50 million in airframe, engines, sensors, and pilot training turned into falling scrap. 2 KAB-500 glide bombs that never reached their targets. Escort fighters forced to burn fuel, reposition, and question every assumption they held about safety. A Russian air command picture cracked and suddenly unsure which blips are real. Conservatively, this is a massive loss in capability and confidence. Realistically, it's worse. Because what died over Kherson wasn't just a bomber. It was belief. Belief that altitude equals safety. Belief that silence means absence. From this moment forward, every Russian crew near the front will hesitate before trusting distance. Every commander will argue longer before approving a bomb run. Every quiet radar sector becomes a potential ambush. This is the strategic checkmate most people miss. The kill doesn't end with wreckage. It rewires tomorrow. Fewer sorties, longer standoff ranges, more fear per mission. So here's the question. If you're Russia, do you spend billions chasing a sky that no longer belongs to you? Or do you admit that in modern war, the side that sees first and stays silent always wins? Tell me your move in the comments.